Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom lakam, which is peace unto you all. Hi, Rob Tawab La Atham, Za'ach Yakam Yawam, on Rachagadah Charlotte, which is good evening. This is your brother Yawan from the JMS camp in Charlotte. Nachamatam Kaya Hamalakat Hashamayim Kwara, repent ye for the kingdom of heaven is at hand, call Halayim La La, but now Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rocha Hakwadash, Wamashana Laza Quim Nawa, Wamala Akim Shor Rochagadah, which is all praises to our Father Yahweh, which means he exists. Bahasham. In the name Yahweh Shai delivers and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Zadanya Allah, this is Daniel chapter 12, and we'll get verse 4. And it says, But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. All right, and ultimately we're in a time, to where knowledge is being increased. All right. Going back up to get the subtitle, it says the time of the end. Right now, we're in the end days, the end of the end days. All right, we're in Jacob's trouble, and it's going to continue to intensify. All right, but the point being that I wanted to get was knowledge is being increased. All right, and with that knowledge being increased, it's coming with different technological advancements in society. All right, hence the false miracles that Esau's coming with. All right, his charagma, his RFID chip. All right, which it's coming in various different ways. All right. And also his technological advancements in the military, militaristically, those things consisting of, which it's not really new. All right, because a lot of times, they don't release the different things that they have in their arsenal, all right, to the masses. All right, but it's been used publicly. All right, going into those different energy weapons. All right, which they have a lot more in their arsenal, but this is some of those technological advancements on a lower level. All right, that they're coming with, but pretty much, with those technological advancements, he's going to be using these in these times. You see, because he understands that he has but a short time, as it mentions in Revelation 12:12. All right, this is Revelation chapter 12 and verse 12, and it says, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them." All right, and ultimately, the elect have their conversations in the heavens. All right, going into these scriptures, it says, "Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil," all right, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, he's the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, and that word for devil goes into deceiver, adversary, in which the scriptures tell us, ultimately, he would come out for a little season, so he's in that season to where, he's using his deception and his false miracles, ultimately, in his rulership. So it says, "For the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." He understands that he has a short time. The scriptures say, "The joy of the hypocrite but for a moment," is but for a moment, roughly paraphrasing, so ultimately he understands that he's coming up, on his he's pretty much ending it. He's at the end of his timeline. All right, that's why he's coming with that great wrath. And I want to get this word for wrath. All right, and it says G2372, and it says passion, angry, heat, anger, forthwith boiling up and soon subsiding again. It says glow, adore, the wine of passion and flaming wine, which either drives the drinker mad or kills him with its strength. It says fierceness. All right. It says rush along or on, be in heat, breathe violently. All right. So it says accordingly, it signifies both the spirit panting as it were in the body and the rage with which the man pants and swells. All right. And ultimately, just reading these different words, all right, that great wrath, that rage, all right, that spirit that pretty much has started with, the different ABC groups, coming with those draconian type laws and stuff like that. That goes into that great wrath, and the spirit that's on them is different from these regular like local officials or local officers, all right, because when you look at on the state level, they operate, or excuse me, the local level, all right, which represents, your cities, your municipalities, all right, your sheriff's deputies, police officers. They operate on different rules of engagement. All right, rules of engagement pretty much going into, the things that they can do and what's in their power and their jurisdiction. State, a little bit higher than the city, a little bit higher than the municipalities, all right, the towns and stuff like that. All right, which they have a little bit more of a increased rageful spirit, depending on, what type of job it is. But when you go up to the federal level, all right, ultimately, they have a different type of spirit on them, it's more so like a police state, you see. But right now, again, they started with the ABC groups, but now they're starting to use like the team groups, what they call team guys. All right, those that are more so in the spirit of not really caring. All right, and only looking to push forth the enterprise of those that are essentially dispatching to do a specific job, and that job is essentially set against you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and his life on us. All right, because we're in the time of Jacob's trouble, and this devil is coming down with that great wrath. So I just want to go into that, you see, because this devil is ultimately, going to he gonna have his way with 2/3. All right, in which there will be martyrs, you see, but the Lord will ultimately raise up a standard, and ultimately those that are martyrs on this side, all right, they'll be first to ultimately be on the chariots. All right. But as in times past, it's not going to be at how it was in times past, to where, this devil was able to put his hands on us. All right. The Lord's going to raise a standard. All right. And for the vast majority of the elect, ultimately, the Lord's going to lift that standard, so just want to go into that standard, you see, because again, this devil isn't going to have his way with us. All right. So nevertheless, let's get a couple precepts. Let's get Isaiah chapter 59, and we'll get verse 19. And it says, "So shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him." And this word for standard, all right, it's going to go into the Hebrew word nawas, all right, H51:27. And it says to flee, escape, to take flight, depart, disappear, to fly to the attack on horseback, to drive at, to take flight. It says to cause to disappear. So it's going to be various different means that various different standards. All right, some brothers are going to be able to fly, some brothers will have super speed, some brothers will have super endurance, some brothers will be teleporting. And I want to get a couple of examples of that, but I'm gonna start with this right here. All right, because we talked about those militaristic advancements and those technological advancements. But this is a DEW weapon, which DEW is an acronym. It says direct energy weapon. Is a ranged weapon that damages its target with highly focused energy without a solid projectile, including lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and sound beams. So pretty much like how they had on Call of Duty. It was Call of Duty. I can't remember which one it was, but pretty much they was on a boat, and like they'll put this little it was kind of like a satellite looking thing, and that's pretty much how it works too, as it is right here. It looks like a satellite, but wherever it's pointed at, it'll focus some energy. All right, and it can leave people confused. And I was looking for the article, but I couldn't find it, when they went down to Venezuela. But pretty much they was like, yeah, they heard ringing or whatever. They went down to their knees. They was bleeding from their nose. They started throwing up and shit like that. So pretty much those going into those militaristic advancements, which those are things that they're showing to the masses. All right, they have much more in their arsenal that they're not bringing out. All right, but continuing on, it says potential applications of this technology include weapons that target personnel, missiles, vehicles, and optical devices. All right, skipping down, it says right here it says, in the U.S., the Pentagon, DARPA, the Air Force Research Laboratory, U.S. Army Armament Research Development and Engineering Center, the Naval Research, going back to the scripture that we got, Daniel 12:4, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. They have research laboratories, research development and engineering centers. All right, and then also naval research laboratories. It says are researching direct energy weapons to counter ballistic missiles, hypersonic cruise missiles, and hypersonic glide vehicles. Which in the time of the Lord's wrath, all right, these things are going to be useless. All right, as it mentions in Joel, I believe it's the 2nd chapter. But it says these systems of missile defense are expected to come online no sooner than the mid to late 2020s. All right, it says China, France, Spain, Germany, the UK, Russia, India, and Israel are also developing military-grade direct energy weapons, while Iran and Turkey claim to have them in active service. The first use of DEW weapons in combat between military forces was claimed to have occurred in Libya in August 2019 by Turkey, which claimed to use DEW DEW weapon. After decades of research and development, most direct energy weapons are still at the experimental stage, and it remains to be seen if or when they will be deployed as practical, high-performance military weapons. But we understand that we in a time to where this devil's going to use the things that he's not mentioning. All right. Which, he has different, different types. It has the microwave, the ADS, active denial system. It says is a millimeter wave source that heats the water in a human target skin and thus causes incapacitating pain. So he got some stuff up his sleeve. But again, the Lord isn't going to let him have his way. All right, the Lord's going to raise a standard. So let's get a couple precepts, or let me get that word for standard. Nawas. It says the family standard. It says Nawas, the family standard, as the place of refuge that one flees to. It says to run away, often from danger or evil, to hurry toward a place of safety, to flee to any place such as a city or mountain. It says flee, abate, display, flight, hide, lift. So that standard going to various different various different pretty much multifaceted standards. It'll be various different ways of spiritual power, i.e., flying, all right, super speed, super strength. There's pretty much different ways to where, the Lord is going to deliver his elect. All right. So let's get that, because it said one of those examples in Isaiah, the 59th chapter, right here. Nawas, age 51:27, it says cause to disappear. All right, so let's get that example. This is Bel and the Dragon, chapter 1, and we'll start at verse 32. All right, and it says, verse 30. I'll start at verse 27. It says, then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and did seethe them together and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth, and so the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, lo, these are the gods ye worship. When they of Babylon heard that, they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying, the king is become a Jew, and he hath destroyed Bel. He hath slain the dragon and put the priest to death. So they came to the king and said, deliver us, Daniel, or else we will destroy thee in thine house. Now when the king saw that they pressed him sore, being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them, who cast him into the lion's den, where he was 6 days. And in the den there were 7 lions, and they had given them every day 2 carcasses and 2 sheep, which then were not given to them, to the intent they might devour Daniel. So pretty much they didn't feed him. So it says they pretty much was fasting. It says, now there was in Jewry a prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, go carry the dinner that thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who is in the lion's den. And Habakkuk said, Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemency of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. And Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which the Most High hath sent thee. And Daniel said, thou hast remembered me, O God, neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. All right, and the scripture say that the things that was written aforetime was written for our learning, so this is an example of a standard. All right, ultimately going into what's known as teleporting. Pretty much the angel took Habakkuk by the head, and teleported him over to Babylon. He didn't even know where it was at, so he went from one place to the next. All right, that's a standard. A standard was raised for Daniel. All right, which those miracles are going to be happening in these days to come, because again, the Lord is going to lift up a standard. All right, let's get another example. Let's get we'll get Isaiah chapter 40. This is Isaiah chapter 40, and we'll get verse 31. All right, and it says verse 28, it says, hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting power, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. Let me get this in the NLT. And it says, have you never heard? Have you never understood that the Lord is the everlasting power, the creator of all the earth? He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depths of his understanding. And when you ultimately look at all the creatures, that we know of, all right, it's a lot of creatures. And when we look at the creatures, all right, animals got spiritual power, so if the Lord created the animals with spiritual power, how much more so for his servants, those that are ultimately doing his will. It's nothing for the Lord, to make us like a pistol shrimp, to where we can, have projectiles come out of our hands, if needs be, all right, to deliver us in certain moments. All right, it's nothing for the Lord to make us to pretty much adjust, our chemical or elemental being, the rudimentary things that are inside our body to where, pretty much he's making it to where, he's delivering us. All right, however the Lord does it, which is going to be through faith of, the elect. You see, but the Lord ultimately, it's no searching of the Lord's understanding. Ultimately the Lord is he's gonna make a way. All right, this is the Lord's movie. All right, so going back, Isaiah 40 and verse 29, it says, He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increaseth strength. It says, even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall fail utterly. Excuse me, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord, in which that word for wait goes into the Hebrew word quawa, all right, and it says to wait, look for, hope, expect, all right, because you have those amongst the circumcision that ultimately are in the spirit of taking up arms, all right, and ultimately trying to get things done in their own hands, taking matters into their own hands. You see, but ultimately the scriptures say that the Lord's going to raise the standards, so those that are ultimately waiting for that standard, that are ultimately looking for that standard, those that are ultimately hoping for that standard and expecting it are going to be the ones that ultimately receive of that deliverance. It says to wait or look or eagerly, to wait or look eagerly for. All right. All right. And pretty much when you go into the word for wait, all right, it means that present day, when someone says, oh, I'm hoping for this, a lot of times it's a word without any weight. All right. In the ancient world, scripturally, all right, waiting and hoping, all right, that meant that one was doing what they were supposed to do so they can expect, all right, Lord's willing, to be delivered. That's the difference between the present day meaning of hope and the ancient meaning of hope. Present day, it doesn't necessarily hold any weight. But when we go back to the ways of old, Jeremiah 6 and 16, ultimately returning unto the ways of our fathers, all right, ultimately, we're hoping in the correct fashion. All right, so going back to Isaiah 40 and verse 31, it says, But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. All right, so it says they shall mount up with wings as eagles. It's going to be a standard, to where brothers is flying. It says they shall run and not be weary, super endurance. It says, and they shall walk and not faint, going into, super stamina. All right, so it's going to be various different factions of spiritual power. Let's get this as well. This is Isaiah chapter 41. All right, and we'll get verse 14. And it says, verse 13, it says, For I, the Lord, thy power will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, Fear not, I will help thee. Fear not, thou worm Ya'aquab, and ye men of Yashar'Allah. I will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Yashar'Allah. All right, and when you look at a worm, it's something that's defenseless. All right, and the Lord likening us into a worm, you see, because right now, we at the bottom of the totem pole. We don't have, Esau got, do weapons. All right, he got things that he got weapons that pretty much, he can shoot a glob of copper. All right, and then it turns into something like a CD disc and slices through things. So, and then stuff that's not even known. All right, he has different classified things, stuff that's classified, and then you got things that are like there's different levels of it, but you got classified, and then you got like top secret, so I believe it's another level above that, but he has things that he doesn't even talk about, so pretty much carnally we don't have any type of means of power. All right, our power is in the spirit, so that's why it says, Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Yashar'Allah, I will help thee, saith the Lord. and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. It says, behold, all right, and behold, when you look at it in the scriptures, behold is a statement of faith. Either something has already occurred or something is going to happen, So this is a statement of faith, all right, to where, going back to we got Isaiah 40, the 40th chapter. It said those that wait, all right. So when you waiting, expectation, all right. So this is a statement of faith, It says, behold, all right, because the elect's going to have the faith ultimately in this standard. It says, behold, I will make thee a new sharp instrument having teeth. And what do teeth do? All right, teeth are sharp. You eat with your teeth, and then that eating is synonymous with consuming. All right, when something is consumed, it's devoured. You see, because the elect is going to have that spiritual power. Reading it again, it says, behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains and beat them small, and shalt make the hills as chaff. So looking at it on a carnal level, Esau see us as the prey. All right, but ultimately the Lord is going to do a role reversal to where, certain members of the elect is going to be getting busy out here. All right. So let's also get this. Let's get Romans chapter 9. All right, we'll get verse 21. And it says verse 19. It says, thou wilt say then unto me, why doeth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Nobody resists the will of the Lord. Going back to what I mentioned previously, this is the Lord's script. It says, nay, but O man, who art thou that repliest against the Most High? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? And that's ultimately what Esau, does. He ultimately opposes everything that is righteous. All right, scriptures say that the Lord is not in all of his thoughts. Verse 21, it says, hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? All right, that vessel unto honor, all right, is the elect of the nation of Yasharallah. It says, and another unto dishonor, all right, going into the wicked. All right, the wicked, the so-called white man, was made to be that vessel unto dishonor. It says, verse 22, what if the Most High, willing to shew his wrath and to make his power known, endure with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory. All right, going into the elect. But pretty much the point that I want to get was, it says, verse 22, it says, what if the Most High, willing to shew his wrath and to make his power known? The Lord's power is going to be known amongst the elect. All right, and the elect, it's not going to be like, the elect is, saying, oh, look what I did. It's going to be, that's going to be a means as to give glory unto the Lord's name. It says, what if the Most High, willing to shew his wrath and to make his power known, endure with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? Esau was pretty much made to be destroyed. Proverbs 16:4, the wicked is reserved unto the day of evil. So pretty much the Lord is essentially, he's building this devil up, in his mind. All right, going to verse 18, it says, therefore he hath mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will hardeneth. So pretty much the Lord is pretty much hardening Esau's heart. That's why he's coming with these different advancements. That's why he's coming with these different false miracles. All right, because again, he opposes righteousness, but the Lord is pretty much making him big in the head just to bring him down. Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, I believe it's verses 10 and let me get it real fast. Isaiah chapter 2. Where we at? Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 11, it says, the lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. All right, so ultimately, them lofty looks that Esau Edom has, all right, he gonna be humble. He's gonna be greatly humble. It says, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. So ultimately, when the elect are ultimately getting busy, on the threshing floor, again, that's going to be a means as to, give glory unto the Lord, because it's going to be the Lord bringing judgment upon the planet Earth. Now, I got one more, and that'll be it. But this is Jeremiah chapter 16, and we'll get verse 16. And it says, behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them. All right, as pursuant to Isaiah 34:16, it says, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read, no one of these shall fail. From my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. Roughly paraphrasing. So what are fish gathered with. All right, they're gathered by the bait. All right, so the elect are ultimately gathered by these scriptures. That's the bait, because the scriptures are ultimately where the elect meets. So it says, "Behold, I will send for many fishers," saith the Lord, "and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks," because the elites, they're gonna be, ducked off hiding and shit, so ultimately, again, the Lord's gonna put the spirit on certain members of the elect, to ultimately, search them out. Those are not, of the heathen that's not destroyed, by the ICBMs. They're gonna be rounded up for the first fruits of slavery. But pretty much the point that I want to go into in this lesson was that the Lord is going to raise the standard, so Adawan Tazah, Zabana Yapa, Lord's will. That was a beautiful edification through the spirit. Adawan Tazah, Atam Yashlai Latawab, Lord's will. You have a good night. Wa Shalom Lakam, which is peace unto you all. Hey, Shalom, Shalom.